Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. You're welcome to another session of the WAIMM webinar series. This run is going to continue from today till the end of September. It's a tightly packed series of webinars, all trying to give us information in the industry which we work, and we believe is going to add up as a wider aspect of the sustainability of the mining industry. Alluvial mining, that is the extraction of gold from a gravel lag, is a very important step towards industry sustainability, from the mining industry sustainability. Unfortunately, very few people know how this thing works. Today, we're going to go through it right from the exploration stage to the prospecting exploration stage, and then the evaluation. With me to do that is Mr. Bismark Antwi. He's a cartographer and a geologist, mainly geologist with Antmine. Today he's going to take us through. He's got a lot of experience in this, and I believe we're going to learn a lot from him. He's also part of the WAIMM Young Professionals group. This is a group of talented professionals, early career geoscientists who are trying to push the industry. And I know we're going to learn a lot from him. Let's stick around. And then Bismarck, you can take it away.
I'm Antwi Bismark, and I'll be taking evaluation. I hope to pay attention and later. We will first go through introduction, and then we will do a little bit of accumulation of alluvial deposits. We'll take a look at the alluvial mining environment surrounding the exploitation of alluvial deposits. We will look at the alluvial prospecting, and then we go through this. So we'll look at that. Placer or alluvial exploration is gradually becoming a hidden or rare subject in the mining industry. This is as a result of over-concentration of efforts and resources in the exploration and exploitation of hard rock deposits. This has led to the influx of crude knowledge in the exploitation of alluvial deposits, thereby causing a national mayhem before head of the Galamsey activities that we are seeing around. With the spike in gold price, investors' attention has been drawn towards the effective exploitation of alluvial deposits. It has therefore become a necessity for geologists and all mining personnel to sharpen their skills in the correct procedures in its exploration. We first look at alluvial deposit formation, how alluvial deposits are formed. In school, we all learned of how alluvial deposits are formed. We learned of hydrothermal deposits, scan deposits. But unlike other deposits, alluvial deposits are not primary, like it came from lava or something of that sort. But alluvial deposits are secondary. It means a first step must be done before a second one happens. So alluvial deposits are always a derived deposit. So they are gotten from either an igneous or metamorphic deposit, which has been weathered from the alluvial deposits. And it is formed by the weathering of enriched veins, which eventually accumulates the mineral of interest. The vein itself might not be potentially exploited. When you come to the eastern corridor of Ghana, there is only one hard rock mining company here, which is the New Montachim. But there are numerous alluvial deposits here. And you ask yourself, why is there only one hard rock mining company here and many alluvial deposits here? It is because alluvial deposits, the vein that the alluvial deposit was formed from might not be exploitable. That is, the width or thickness might be so small that hard rock mining cannot be done on it. And so with continuous washing and eroding and weathering of this small vein, it accumulates by the salting of water and other bodies, and then it accumulates, which is then further becomes mineable for alluvial mining companies. Through countless ages, the surrounding country rock and vein itself weathered, broke down and eroded away by rain, frost, and chemical reactions. The gold, being chemically resistant and heavy, was left behind in the process. According to the principle of uniformitarianism, this process is still ongoing, but at an inconceivable slow rate that it cannot be noticed by the human eye. In the formation of a true alluvial deposit, the second step involved, after it has been weathered from the vein itself, the second step is involved the transportation of eroded material by running water. The running water performs an important service in placer formation. They source the material with which it is laid into different strata according to the gravity of each material. So you can see that when we encounter an alluvial gravel or alluvial deposits, the boulders and the harder rocks or the heavier rocks are deposited at the base of the deposit, with lighter ones or the sandy ones on top, and then the medium ones in the middle. This is because the sorting has been done by the river or the water body carrying this load. So as the velocity of the stream diminishes, or when the slope lessens or a bend is encountered, some of the heavier materials drop to the stream bottom. Through natural classification, the heavier materials tend to work its way downward through the gravel bed until it finds a resting place on the bedrock or impervious clay stratum to hold it. Consequently, the bottom gravel are enriched with metallic particles, the coarse and heavier good particles seeking the bedrock, while the lighter ones are found higher up. So when you encounter a gravel which is enriched, you can see that the nuggets are found on the base that is closer to the bedrock, with the powdered ones on top. However, even on the bedrock, if the gold usually ends on the bedrock and doesn't go deeper, it doesn't go deeper because the bedrock is the parent rock, the foundation on which the gravel was laid thousands of years ago. And so the gold particles will not go within or below the bedrock. That is for alluvial deposits. But sometimes the gold itself will be found a little bit within the bedrock, which becomes clay. And so sometimes better to add the bedrock in your exploration activities. One thing you have to know that it doesn't always follow that rich placer deposits are found in close proximity to a vein. When you find a rich placer deposit, it doesn't mean that there is a higher vein or there's a rich vein near. That is not always the case. Indeed, the conditions favorable for the concentration of the gold may be found many kilometers from where the precious metal was first torn out from the vein walls, none of which may be economical to work on by itself. As I said, when you come to the Eastern Corridor of Ghana, Newmont Achim is here, but there are numerous alluvial mining companies and Galamsey people around. They search for the smaller veins that you see the hard rock people cannot mine. They search for it and they treat it as Galamsey people. And so these smaller veins has been worn down, accumulated together to form alluvial deposit, which is mined by other alluvial mining companies. But however, you can look at a gold particle and confirm that no, the source of the gold is near or is far. When you encounter the gold or you process your sample, you get the gold out of it. When you use microscope to look at it, sometimes you can see it's very smooth. It means it has traveled very far or rounded. But sometimes when you look at it, it's jagged and angular. It means the source of the gold is not that far. So that is one of the indications that can help you. Maybe you want to trace a hard rock deposits. That is one of the indications you can use to trace an area where there's a possibility of a hard rock deposits. And so graphically, this is how it is. This is the zone of weathering. This is the enriched veins, which may not be taken for to be mined by the hard rock deposits, but it permeates the surface. But it will be weathered and moved downwards into a stream, where the stream transports it to wherever it wants. And when it meets the right conditions, it will be deposited. So that is it. The veins will be here, it will be eroded and weathered, and then it will move into the stream. The stream will carry it along. However, there are similar deposits to the alluvial deposits. We have the alluvial deposits. These are the deposits that are derived by in situ weathering or a slight movement by gravitational movement and accumulation. And we have the colluvium. This is a general name for loose, unconsolidated sediments that has been deposited at the base of hill slope by either rainwash, sheet wash, slow continuous downslope, or a variable combination of these processes. And we have the terrace as well, which are deposited on the steep edge of a hill. And it may be the remains of an old floodplain cut through by the river and left standing above the present floodplain level. So look at it here. This is a vein which is rich, but this has been weathered and deposited in situ. It hasn't traveled, and so it's here. So we will call this alluvial. When it moves down to the base of the mountain, we will call it colluvium. And when it comes to the river, which is the main transport medium, it becomes the placer. And when it moves and deposits on the steep sides of a mountain on this way, it forms the terrace deposits. And so one will ask, what's the difference between the terrace deposits and the colluvium deposits, knowing that they all lie at the base of a mountain. When you look at the gravel of a colluvium deposit, you can see that because it hasn't traveled far, it's from this same mountain that it got deposited here. The rock constituents are similar with the environment in which it is deposited. But because this was traveled from somewhere and deposited on the hillside of a mountain that was encountered in the transport direction of the river here, this gravel or rock components will not be similar to the environment in which it is found. So that is the difference between the terrace deposits, colluvium, and then the alluvial deposits, as well as the placer. Alluvial mining environment. Because alluvial mining has been left to the Galamsey people, when you mention alluvia, the word that comes to everyone's mind is Galamsey. And you know, Galamsey in Ghana, it has caused a national crisis, which efforts aimed at mitigating its effect has proven to be futile. Our water bodies, virgin forest, sacred groves, tourist sites have all been adversely affected by the evil hands of unprofessional placer mining. This is a site of a Galamsey site. You see how they are destroying the land. It's difficult to reclaim this. This is the Galamsey site. This is a similar alluvial site, a large-scale alluvial mining site in Ghana. You can see the environment is nice, it's okay. This is how the Galamsey people manage their river. But when you come to a large-scale alluvial, this is how they manage their river. To be honest, I took this drone shot, and when you look at it, they use the serpentine movement to do the recycling and washing. So after they create a dam, very big ones, they pump water from nearby water bodies into it. When they start washing, they will not pump water from any stream again, neither will any water move from the operation side to the river bodies. And so the water, this is the plant, the water will move to this one, the dirty water. It settles down through this channel, gets to this one, settle again into this one, settle again to this one. This one will give you back to this. Just like that in a serpentine, that we call a serpentine because it moves like a snake. And then this, and then this. When it gets here, it will be so clean to wash again with this. So they will put pump, you can see pumps there. This will be pumped to the plant and will be used to do the washing. We have some superstitions surrounding alluvial deposit prospecting. They believe that gold is a spirit and has an affinity for blood. It will shock you that when you go to the bush and you have some people following you and maybe you are working and someone gets hurt, some of them become happy because they believe that because blood has come out, the gold or the sample will be of high grade. And this can be seen in Galamsey sites where before they start mining, they kill sheep, goat, and sometimes they bury cow because they believe that gold is a spirit and therefore must be appeased with blood before you can get a high grade. And they also believe that wherever a rainbow ends, there's a high possibility of a presence of a paystreak. And with this, I will define a paystreak. A paystreak is an ore within an ore, which is very, very profitable. That is a paystreak. And they believe that wherever, even in our childhood, I think we heard this, that wherever a rainbow ends, there's a high possibility of the presence of a paystreak. Well, to me, I've seen this enough. I try to prove it. We saw a rainbow. We tried to follow where it ends. We went there. We did a pitting. We got nothing. Indeed, it was a low grade. We got nothing. So this has been proven to be false. Or for my side, it has been proven to be false. Gold being a spirit, they also believe that gold being a spirit, it can therefore willingly appear and disappear. They think that when you do your prospecting and you get a grade and you say that this is the grade, because it's a spirit, if you don't appease the spirits, you will come there again and the grade will not be as you predicted. we all know this is a principle in a mineral resource estimation, that the same sample, when divided into two, will not give you the same results. Yeah, so that is something that can be used to explain that. And they also believe that oil and banana leaves drives away gold. Oil and banana leaves drives away gold. And with the oil and banana leaves, I think the oil is the sensible one out of it, because gold, you use extracting carpet to trap the gold. But when there's oil in the extracting carpet, or when the sample gets tarnished with oil, the gold particles become slippery, and so it becomes very difficult to get them in the extracting carpet, and so all the gold will be washed away. And while I believe that banana leaves are also slippery, and so it might have the same explanation. And they say that strange presence of animals depicts an omen. Like when you are doing your prospecting and you see a python, or when you see a snake, a goat, or anteater, or any other animal, it means the animal, that place, there's an omen, and it's better to move away from it. I don't believe this is true, so let's move forward and look at other forms of our tutorial. When you want to start prospecting, if you want to go into it, the equipment that will be needed are the GPS device, your measuring tape, your spray marker, pump machines, sieve analysis, pans, 2 decimal place scale, a kilogram scale, and perhaps as well as a prospector machine, one of the very essential components of prospecting. I have a budget here that I wanted to look at it, a budget I sent to someone. We have cutlasses, you buy one, GPS batteries, flagging tapes, permanent marker pens, 50-meter measuring tape, pick axes, shovels, digging axes, iron bar, bucket, rope, head pans, rubber bowls, sample bags, 0.1 cubic meter drums, hand gloves, pumping machines, extracting blanket, shank or topper sieve, basin, panning or wooden bowl, which they call kodoa, gold pans, field notebook for your own use, A4 sheet, flat file, stapling machine, stapling pins, Wellington boot, helmet, field bags, which will cost a total of 4,000, around 4,006. And then a prospector machine, which currently costs around 2,000 Ghana cedis. So when you have 6,000, you can start a business of your own if you're a geologist and you are home unemployed. Yeah, and when you have a contract and you submit this to them, they have to submit you all these materials or logistics for you to go into the field to do your prospecting. So before you go to the field, there are some background activities you have to do. And one is you have to ensure there is a cordial agreement with opinion leaders and investors before you set up to go to the field. This negligence of this point has led to the death of many geologists, and as well as injury of many personnel and other geologists. So ensure there is an agreement, even a written agreement, between you, the investor that is sending you into the field, and the opinion leaders. And get a Marvin. A Marvin, I describe a Marvin as a person who is someone who knows a little bit about good work, and is also an aborigine of the place you are going to prospect. You should hail from that place. You can perhaps contact an assemblyman, a unit committee member to accompany you as you go to the bush, and ensure there is an ever-ready access to transportation and radio connectivity, and get to know the taboo days on the concession area. You don't want to be met by mobs in the area because you disobeyed their laws. So get to know the taboo days on the concession area. You have to do background checks. Ensure the about to be prospected area is a referral zone. You don't have to be wasting money going to be digging pits when there's actually nothing like gold in the area. So the first thing you have to do is you have to find a major stream, go to a bank where the river is not that deep, take a sample, wash it. If you get even a small speck of gold in it, there's a high probability that there's gold in the area. And seek for a story in relation to the origination of the town names in the area. Example, when you hear of Esikem, when you come to Chi, it means in the midst of money. Esikem, in the midst of money. And when you hear names like Aprashim, it means when you sweep, look inside. When you sweep, look inside. Aprashim, Oprashim. So Aprashim, when you sweep, look inside. And Obuasi, you know the story, how Obuasi originated. And find the general direction of all the river bodies in the area. the direction will show you where the gold is coming from and where it will end. And so with the direction, you know where the nuggets are to be found and where the powdered gold are also to be found. So when you come to the Eastern Corridor of Ghana, the Atiwa Forest Reserve is believed to be the source of all the gold in the area. And so all the gold being moved by Brim River will have the nuggets at the base of the Atiwa Forest, and then away from it, as it moves, you will get the final ones as well. And you know the alluvial deposits, because alluvial deposits are carried by water, it will only be deposited when there are interference and eddy current formation. It's therefore necessary to have a deeper sense of obstacles a river might encounter in its transport. So this example we picked from a stream bed, and you can see the gold specs in it. So this one should tell you that the budget must be pushed into for us to prospect. So this shows you the gold specs that we found from a stream bed. And before you go into prospecting, you know, budget is scanty. And so as a geologist, if they ask you, can you just put in 1 point, just 1 point to show us whether the place is good or not? That is finding PAYSTREAK zones. You should be able to do that because it is your expertise. So when they tell you they need only 1 point for you to put it there for them, you should be able to put a point there to show whether the place is good to be exploited or explored. And so the first thing you have to do is find ancient working pits. You know, our grandfathers were not stupid enough to work on places which are not rich. And so when you see places like this where they have dug into the ground to search for a mineral of interest, it means the place is rich. And so you should also put a point there to see what they were looking after. And the first thing you have to do in the field is create a not just go and just be putting points there. You have to do a three-dimensional model to know whether the area is good or not by looking at the paleo environment. When I say look at the paleo environment tells you that any value you are seeing now in the olden days or in the paleo environment, in the time past, any small value, a value you are seeing now was bigger, and any mountain you are seeing now was higher. Any value you are seeing now was thicker or wider, and any mountain you are seeing now was higher. And so when you see a valley or a river which is like 50 meters, you can postulate that in time past it was like 150 meters or 200 meters. And so by continuous watching in the position, the width of the river has lessened. And so on either banks of the river body, there can be a deposit there. And so you have to cast your mind back to the olden days and look at how the environment was before you met it. And so by doing the deposit, a three-dimensional model of the landform now, you can predict what is happening, what happened in time past. And if given the second chance, I will try to teach how to create a three-dimensional model by using Cepher, if I'm given the next chance. So the next thing is also to locate the confluence or tributary of rivers. As I said early on, alluvial deposits are formed because rivers are transport load. And so wherever a change in speed or there is an interference, it will deposit its load there. And so when you look at this river is coming with its own load, and this river is coming with its own load. When they meet here, there will be an interference. So there will be an eddy current that will form here. And so the deposit will be here. And with the paleo environment in your mind, you believe that this river was larger. So it was extended like from this end to this end, as well as this river. And so it was larger, but with time, they became smaller as we see now. And so these areas are all areas that one should put a point or explore for alluvial deposit, because in time past, this was the original channel way of the river we are seeing now. And then locate the meanders of rivers and where it changes in width, speed, as well as the flat plains on the banks of river bodies. When you see a river like this, which is meandering, look at the U-shaped portion of the river and look at the inner portion of the U. That is to be formed. So when you look at this river, a rich deposit will be formed. When you look at this river, at this end, the river is coming with its own speed, but as it begins to meander, the speed will lessen. And so as it lessens to pick up its speed again. The place it lessens, it will deposit something there. So you can see the position here. And as it moves, it starts picking up speed here again. And as it moves again, the speed lessens. And so you deposit another one here. And then it will pick speed again and deposit another one here. So when you are seeking for PAYSTREAK, or you need only one point to predict whether the place will be good or not, this place is the U portion of a U. The inner portion of a U is a place that you should prospect. You should put a point. So here, you should put a point if you want. Here you can put a point, here you can put a point. But still with the paleo environment in your mind, all these places, a point must be placed because perhaps the river was larger than we see now. And when you see a flat plain just beside a river body, that place you should prospect because it served as, it was like a flat plain. So any load that the gravel or the river was coming with, it deposits it on the flat plain. Also, when you see a river which is being interfered or has been interfered with a mountain base, you should also search the mountain base because in time past, it means the mountain was obstructing the river. And so the deposits will be formed where the mountain was obstructing the base of that mountain. Also, you should search for paleo channels and marshy areas. When you look at your map in the field, in the office, when you look at your map, you can see there are some places where everything shows, every landform shows the place is a river channel, but now there is no river there. When you look at this map that I picked from one of the areas in Ghana, you can see this is a valley, but there is no river there. So you should put a point here to check whether there is something there or there's a reserve or a resource there that you can exploit. Also, search for marshy areas. Areas that are marshy, when it has not flooded, you can search that place because in time past, it served as a bowl where it collected all the sediment being carried by water. So you can search for marshy areas as well. And now knowing the points that how to put PAYSTREAK points or to know where there's a high zone areas, sometimes that one alone cannot help you to do a geostatistical analysis. So you have to plan your points on the area that someone has contracted you to go search the area. You have to plan your points. And we have different means of planning of points. We have the baseline and cross-line method, which is usually used by some companies. We have square or rectangular or kite pattern. We have the grid system. We have the staggered pattern. We have the radial pattern, and we have the random pattern. The baseline cross-line is a pattern that follows the general direction of the major river of the area. Baseline is the line that follows the direction of the river and seeks to know the grade difference of ore along the river body. Whereas cross-line is perpendicular to the baseline, which seeks to know the dispersion of grade from the river body. And one advantage is it's an effective method to find the trend and extent of an ore body. And one disadvantage is an ore body unrelated to the major river may be interpreted as a branch ore body because of the connection between the baseline and the cross line. An ore body which is not related to the current river channel may be interpreted as if it is part of the river channel that we see now. And plotting of points becomes confusing in places where there is no distinct general direction of rivers or streams. When the rivers are not flowing one direction, it becomes difficult to put in a baseline because there is no distinct direction of the rivers in the area. And so this is a baseline cross-line method. You can see the baseline, which is the green line, following this river. So that is the general direction of the river is northeast, southwest, like this. Have the cross line as the orange, wherever the baseline, the cross line sits, you put a point there. We have the square, rectangular, and the kite pattern. The square pattern is used in areas where there is an asymmetric dispersion of grade. That is, when you pick a point or you move in that direction, the dispersion seems to be homogeneous. Whereas the rectangular pattern is used in areas where the grade homogeneity is continuous in one direction but converse in the other. And the kite pattern is used to confirm a pattern, either square or rectangular, you can use the kite pattern to confirm it, together with the square and rectangular pattern. What advantages are with this is resemblance to the baseline cross-line method. It can predict grade distribution to the proximity river, as well as the grade distribution of gravel that are not in proximity to the river body. And if accurately spaced, it can predict alluvial, colluvium, and alluvial deposits. And one disadvantage is it takes a number of trial and error points to know the optimal spacing parameters. Again, it requires constant change in parameters with each change in the environment. When we look at this a square rectangular kite method, when we were starting, is in continuous. And we saw that the grade is continuous pattern, serving as the medium of change to confirm whether you should change from square to rectangular or rectangular to square. So that is it. And then we have the grade pattern. The grade pattern utilizes the latitude and longitude of an area as a means of plotting of points based on predefined spacing criteria. Wherever the longitude and latitude is, one put a point there. So let me say you are using ArcGIS Pro or MapInfo Pro. You locate your area and you grade longitude and latitude on it based on a spacing of, let's say, 100 meters by 100 meters. So wherever 100 meter latitude meets 100 meter longitude, you put a point there. This system is budget friendly because when you have an area and you want to prospect, you just have to grade the whole area. And maybe the investor tells you, I can only put in 16 points. You look at the whole area, you grade it, and you get your 16 points to just tally with the investor's budget. It's effective in places where all trend is vast and continuous. When the all trend is vast and continuous, this is one of the best systems to use, the grade pattern. But when the all trend is very small, when you use the grade not optimal, you miss the all. The disadvantages are the essential grade values will be missed if the spacing is not optimal with grade values. This pattern takes no thought of actually, this is the pattern I like the most. This is the pattern I use mostly. This pattern seeks to utilize the merits of both baseline and crossline, as well as the grade pattern method. It seeks to ensure that a number of points always points, each point serving as an infill point or a confirmation point. And deposits with affinity to the stream, as well as the ones unrelated to the streams, can be evaluated as well using the staggered pattern. And one disadvantage is it is laborious and capital intensive, which is usually an area where we use predicts the area. Staggered pattern we use like 12 or 16 points. And so investors are usually not interested in this pattern, but I think it's one of the effective ones in planning of points. So this is it. This also uses the grade lines as well. So when we take these 4 points, you can see these 4 points. This one is serving as the infill point for these 4 points. When you pick this one to this point serving as the for these 4 points. When you take this river, you can see this 1/3 for this river. When you come to this river, you can see these lines 1, 2, and 3 are following the baseline crossline method for this river. With this small bend here, we can see these two lines 1 and 2 are following the baseline crossline method for this river. When we look at this 1, 2, we can see it's following the baseline crossline method for this, and same as well, same for here as well. That is, and then we have the radial pattern. This pattern is usually utilized in arid areas or places where there is no clear defined stream. Again, it can be used to find the dispersion of a deposit in places where a high grade has been found already. Maybe you found a high grade, but you don't know where it is trending. You can use the radial pattern to find it. It uses a sequential spacing of circles from the origin of the mother circle with points plotted around the circumference of the daughter circle. It can be used to find the dispersion and trend of alluvial, colluvial, terrace, and fluvial deposits. The best method in finding the dispersion and trend of an already found anomaly. Maybe someone has told you, oh, this place when we went to prospect, it was good, and you want to confirm whether what they are saying is true. You can use the radial method to check the trend and extent of it. And one disadvantage is all points around the daughter circle must be completed before a sound analysis can be made out of it. This is a radial pattern. This anomaly was found, and so we did a radial pattern on this circle around it, did 4 points north, south, east, and west. The next point shouldn't follow that same line, it should follow between these two lines. So northeast, southwest, just like that. So the next point falls here, and then the next point again with points plotted on the circumference, and then the next one again with points plotted on the circumference. So with this, wherever the grid direction is, using the system, you will find it. And wherever, however it expands, you will know how the grid distribution of the area is. And then we have the random system. This system follows no rules. The geologist decides where a point must be placed based on his expertise or the terrain analysis that he has done. And if you know how to use ArcGIS Pro, MapInfo Pro, or QGIS, you can just create a random point in an area and then you start prospecting. Advantages are it is cost and time effective, but the disadvantages far outweigh the advantages in that a rich area can be neglected as a bad and vice versa. You can put a point and you say, oh, the point I placed here, it is bad. And so the whole area is bad, which might not be so. And you can say an area might be good, which might not be so. And with this, geostatistical analysis cannot be done if there's a few. With like 5 points, 3 points, you can't do geostatistical analysis on it. So now we're hoping that we have planned our points. We are done with every negotiation with farmers, with opinion leaders in the area. So we are going to the field. We go to the field procedure. The first thing is, now you planned your points. You have to locate your planned points using the GPS device. This is one of the GPS device I was using, and this is Garmin GPS 20X. So you locate your points using any GPS device you have. I think this device is 1,300. Yeah, this device is 1,300 Ghana cedis. And then when you go to the field, you have to mark out your the pit that you want them to dig. And so the dimension is 1 meter by 1 meter on these ends. And then you make them initiate the digging. Ensure that the 1 meter by 1 meter dimension is obeyed till they reach the bedrock. Sometimes when you are not there and they are digging, by the time you come, it will be like a cone. That is, it will be broad on top, but it will be small downwards. And so you should ensure that the same 1 meter by 1 meter is followed till it reaches the bedrock. If that one is not followed, your calculation of volume might be wrong. So when a prospecting pit is dug, the first one you encounter is the first layer you encounter is the topsoil, and then you encounter the overbedding, and you encounter the ore or the gravel, and then the bedrock. To be honest with you, one of the difficult things in alluvial prospecting is finding the bedrock. The bedrock sometimes is weathered and it becomes clay, and so it has some similarities with clay. So when you encounter a gravel and you recover the gravel and you meet a clay at the bottom of the gravel, you might think that you have reached the bedrock, and so you should stop the digging. However, I should let you know that an alluvial deposit can have about 3 layers. The first layer of ore, and then you encounter a clay. The second layer of ore, you encounter a clay before you get to the actual ore, before you encounter the bedrock. So you should know how to differentiate between a bedrock and then a clay. And one thing is, when you look at a bedrock, sometimes you can see lineations in it. As a geologist, you know lineation. You can see lineations in it. And you can see that, yes, this the rock is here, but has been weathered. But with a clay, you cannot see any lineations in them. I tried finding an image of a clay and then a bedrock, but I have been going to the field nowadays, so I wasn't able to find that image. Sorry for that. However, when the place, the pit they are digging caves in, when it is caving in, you have to protect through cribbing. You put pillars around it for those who are digging, that if it collapses, no one will die. But before you do this, if you do this, it means you cannot follow the 1 meter by 1 meter dimension. You have to increase it to 1.2 meter to 1.2 meter dimension so that it can accommodate this wood structure for your digging to continue. And so this is an image of a crib pit. The place was caving in, and so we have to do cribbing. And so now they are bringing the gravel out. This is the gravel, this is the ore. And so this is whenever you get to a 0.5 meter, you get to the gravel level, every 0.5 meter you reach, you must put it aside, every 0.5 meter till you get to the bedrock. And so you can see that is the hole they are digging. That is the first 0.5 meter, the second 0.5 meter, the third 0.5 meter. And here you can use, it's expected that when you get to your 0.5 meter, when you finish digging your 0.5 meter, take you, but that is not always like that. And so we use the 0.1 meter cube box to check the volume, the actual volume that they are bringing now. So the number of boxes that they wash will tell you whether it is 0.5 meter cube or 0.6 or 0.7. Or you can pause this 0.1 cubic meter measurement and do it whilst you are processing your samples. So you can pause it and just leave the samples there and pause it and continue whilst doing your processing of the samples. And when bedrock is encountered, sample at a depth of 0.2 meters. When they get to the bedrock, let them dig to 0.2 meters to check if the bedrock had a greater number of specks incorporated into it. If those specks are in the bedrock, it means you have to, when you send the gravel to the plant, they should add a portion of the bedrock to it to be washed at the plant. However, there are some alluvial companies that want to move into a hard rock mining. So when you get to the bedrock, you have to sample some of the bedrock and send to SGS or ALS for geochemical analysis. So when you get to the bedrock, you sample some and you send to SGS or ALS for analysis. Processing of samples. When sample is fully extracted from the pit, it is best to leave it for a day or two for samples to be initiated or completed. When a sample is brought out from the pit, it swells, and so you should leave it to swell before you start doing your washing. Before you do the wash, you must take a 5 kilogram from the sample that you brought and do a particle size analysis using your sieving instrument. You should use the sieving instrument to know a portion which is clay, the portion. Pick a 5 kilogram sample from the recovered samples, and then you bring the sample back to the bulk sample after you do your sieve analysis, because the gold might be in the sample that you picked. And so if you take that one out, it will affect your results, and so it must be brought back before they wash. After the swell is complete, soak sample in water for a day to help in the easy liberation of the gold particles. Sample was water, and so it has become slimy. This will help in the easy recovery of the gold particles from the unconsolidated gravel. And then you can use your 0.1 meter cube here as well to know the actual volume that they extracted from the pit. And so this is the prospector machine, and this is the extracting carpet that you use. This is the extracting, the prospector machine, the extracting carpet. You must always ensure that this part that we are seeing here maintains an average of 10 degrees to 14 degrees in inclination. That will help in getting the correct amount of gold that you should get. And with this extracting blanket, if you've seen this before, mostly they use it as a doorstep. But when you look at it carefully, within it there are some ridges in the extracting carpet. You must ensure that these ridges are always perpendicular to the flow of the river. That is the water that is being used to wash. You must always ensure it is perpendicular to it, because if you make it parallel, you will get no gold from it. It should be perpendicular, because I said gold will only accumulate when there are interference in it. So if you make it perpendicular to the flow of the river, of the water being used in the washing, it will, because the ridges are blocking it, the gold particles will be accumulated at the ends of the ridges. So you must ensure that that's one. If you want to get accurate results. And you can see some my guys washing the samples. They soak the samples and they are washing it using the prospector machine. And for accurate results, make sure the sample is washed clean. A sample that is washed we shouldn't be observing clay particles in it. The sample should be washed clean, that it can even be used for building or for something like that. It should be washed clean. With that, you will get your accurate results that you want. Continue processing until all impurities in the final concentrate is done away with. After final processing, using the gold pan, a clean gold particle must be ready for weighing and eventual analysis. People use mercury to coagulate the gold particles. To me, it is environmentally and metallurgically not correct, because mercury is very destructive, and so it shouldn't be used. And metallurgically, the plant people will not be using mercury, and so the prospecting, which you always tally with the plant people, why should you be using mercury when the plant people are not using mercury? And so you shouldn't be using mercury at all, because it's not sound. And in weighing of gold, separate the specks or the nugget found during digging or washing, because if you add it to the bulk of the samples bulk of the gold that you recovered from the samples, it will cause outlier effect in your geostatistical analysis. However, you should account for it in your calculation. And you must have an eye to differentiate between fool's gold, that is pyrite or charcoal pyrite, rusted gold, and then clean gold and tune it, because he said it's not a gold, it's a rusted metal, and so it's gold, but it was rusted. And you should also know the difference between pyrite and charcoal pyrite. And one hint is to use the streak method. When someone shows you something that he says is a gold particle, if you have a needle or something that is harder, you just have to scrape the surface of the pyrite or charcoal pyrite. If the powder that comes out is yellow, it's good. But if it becomes dark, it's not good. It's either pyrite or charcoal pyrite. And here is my Marvin processing the sample. And this is the gold we got from it. This gold was gotten whilst digging the nugget, and this is the total gold that we got from it, 9.26 grams, which will be used to do the calculations. Then we come to the geostatistical analysis. Before you calculate the grade, you must know the density of the dominant rock in the area. You must know the soil factor of the gravel record, and then the gravel depth at each interval. You must also know the expected volume, the actual volume, the boulder constituents, the cobbles, gravel, sand and clay compositions, the weight of recovered gold, and then the nugget weight. And this is the formulas that are used. The bankable volume is equal to actual volume minus boulder volume, and the loose volume is equal to bankable volume times soil factor. The nugget effect is equal to the nugget recovered over total gold recovered times 100%. And the crude grade is the total gold recovered over the loose volume. And the sectional grade is the grade of the first layer times the thickness of the same layer times the area, the cross-sectional area of the pit, plus the grade of the middle layer times the thickness of the middle layer times the area of the pit that was dug, plus that of the bottom layer. And then you add the thickness times the area, plus the thickness times the area. But we know that the area is 1 times 1 meter, 1 meter by 1 meter, and so it will be 1 meter squared. And so it will be J1 times L1, because A1 is always 1, because it's 1 meter by 1 meter. So J1 times L1, G2 times L2, Jn times Ln over L1 plus L2 plus Ln. And if you want to calculate the grade is total gold recovered minus nugget recovered over loose volume, or crude grade minus nugget factor times crude grade. It will give you the grade of the prospected area. And so we have this data for pit AB001, where the density of the gravel is 2,320 kilogram per meter cube. The soil factor is 1.2, the topsoil is 0.5, overburden is 3.0, gravel or ore width is 1.5. The sample we picked for sieve analysis is 5 kilogram for each layer. And then we got the cobbles. When we did the sieve analysis, we got this cobbles, the constituents that we are seeing here. And then from to depth of each ore layer, 3.5 to 4, 4.0 to 4.5, 4.5 to 5.0. Number of 0.1 boxes processed at each layer. The first layer, we got 5 boxes. We were expected to get 5. We got 5. The second layer, we got 7 boxes. The third layer, we got 8 boxes. Boulders encountered in the first layer, we got 3 kilogram. The second one, we got 3.5 kilogram. The bottom layer, we got 5 kilogram. And the gold recovered at each layer, the top one, we got 0.3 gram, the middle 0.6, the bottom 0.75, as well as the nugget constituents. And so I would want us to do a little bit calculation using an Excel. So I would delete all this. And so we look at our data we are having and then we insert it. We have density of, that one has already been inserted. We have soil factor. So we have sample weight that we picked to do the sieve, and everyone is 5 kilogram. So I just put it there. Sieve is 5 kilogram, 5, 5, 5. And so because we are having the density, we will multiply the kilogram by the density, and then we will get the volume. Because the boulder is not a regular sheet. So if you try to find the volume, you will not get it. And so if you get the weight, you know the density of the rock type. And so you just multiply it, and then you get your volume of that boulder constituent here. And then we have our layers. Form to layer is here. And so the length of each overburden was 0.5. You then describe your samples using the color, the roundness, how clear it is. You just do that to do your sample description. So expected volume, if we are having an area of 1 meter by 1 meter, we should get an expected volume of 0.5 meter cube. So that is the expected volume. So the actual volume, because we watched, let's look at our data again. For the first one, we watched number of boxes, we watched 5 boxes. So 5 boxes, 1 box is 0.1. So in 5 boxes, this will be 0.5 meter cube. That is the actual one. The second one, we watched 7 boxes, so it will be 0.7. And then the third one, we watched 8 boxes, so 0.8. 0.8. So the total volume should have been 1.5, but now you got the total volume of the recovered to be 2 meter cube. But that is the actual volume that you got. Out of the boulder constituents, we got 3.5. We still multiply it by the density, you will get the volume. And so with that, we have to calculate the bank volume. That is, the bank volume is the actual volume minus the boulder volume. So we will subtract this volume from the actual volume to get the bank volume. So we can see when we look at the SL formula, the actual volume, which is here, the actual volume minus the boulder volume. So with that, it will give you the bank volume. And then we come to the loose volume. That one too is the bank volume times the swell factor, which is 1.2, which is the 1.2. And then the gold recovered 0.3, 0.0.75. The nugget constituents is here. And so with the formulas that I showed early on, this will give you the nugget effect 17%, 15%, and 15%. So the crude grade will be 0.5. This one hasn't been, we just use the normal methods to 0.5, 0.7 to 0.78. This is the crude grade. We don't report this one because this one, some minor errors might be in because we've not corrected the border corrections. We've not done any corrections on it. So reporting this will give you a wrong answer. And so we have the sectional grade. The sectional grade tries to pick one layer and compare it to the whole thickness of the gravel that was encountered. So it picks one layer and compares it to the whole thickness that was encountered. And so summing it up together, it should give you the average of the whole pit, the gravel that you brought out. It should give you the average grade of the whole gravel you brought out. And then we have grade categorization. You should ask the investor which the cutoff point he wants. If he says 0.2, then you know the categorization you should do. That is 0.2 to 0.4 is low grade, 0.4 to 0.6 is medium, 0.6 to 1 is high grade. So with that, you do your grade categorization. And so with these points that we are having with this data, our grade is 0.56. Our grade is 0.56. So this is confirmed by the sectional grade method, which is also 0.56. So with this, we are good to go. And with the sieve analysis, you just input in the sample that you pick. The sample you picked were 5 kilograms, which is here, 5 kilograms. And then the percentage, after using your sieve, the percentage of each constituent of gravel, cobble, sand, or clay, you put it here and it will give you the percentage. This is necessary because if you work in a place for so long, it's not always that you should be doing prospecting. Always, when you see a gravel, by looking at the cobble constituents or the gravel constituent or the clay constituent, you should just tell whether this is a bad grade or this is a good grade gravel or something like that. And so by doing the grade, the sieve analysis for an entire area for quite some number of times, you should know that when I see which is a gravel constituent of 30%, oh, then it means that place is a high grade. And so there's no need always trying to wash. That will serve as a checkpoint to see whether this place will be good or not. So it's necessary to calculate these ones as well. So we got the sample we picked were 5 kilograms, and the cobble, let's say we put one here. If we put one here, it will calculate the percentage of it, 20%. So 2, maybe 1, maybe 0.7. So as you put it there, it will be calculating. And then when you are done with the whole layer, it will give you the total percentage of cobbles, gravel, or sand in the whole area. So that will help you in your analysis. With this done, we continue with our presentation. And then we have the grade estimation. We have the blocking method, the inverse distance weighting method, the Kragen method, the polynomial method, and radial basis function method. So we will take it one after the other. This method utilizes the following assumption. It assumes that wherever you pick a sample or you do your pitting, the grade value will extend only to half distance to the nearest point. Let's say if you are having 2 prospecting points, which is maybe 120 meters apart, one grade will extend only to half of it. So let's say 60 meters, and it will not extend to the other one's region. So that is it. And then you block around it to know the area that will be covered by that particular point. So for an area around the sample, all points in the area will have the same grade as that point. So that any area around that prospecting point that you did, all points in that area will have that grade. With these assumptions, polygons are manually created around each point to create an array of colored blocks to show the grade distribution. This method is somehow archaic because we have tools that you can use for geostatistical analysis. However, for a quick analysis, I think you can use that one as well. So this is one I did. You can see I don't know if you can see this is 0.6, so high grade, we block around it. This one will not extend to this one. So when it reach half the distance of this one, it will truncate, it will end. So for this point alone, which is 0.63, the area will be surrounded only by this one. And so all points in this area will have a grade of 0.63. That is it. And so we have the high grade, which is the red, medium grade, which is the yellow, low grade, which is the green. And then we have the inverse distance weighting method. This uses the measured value surrounding the prediction location to predict the value of any unsampled location based on an assumption that things close to one another are more alike than those that are further apart. So when we have this prospecting pit, which is 1.0 gram per meter cube, and though I've not done it, what would this grade be to this one? I can be bold that this one will be around 0 gram per meter cube. But I will tell them I don't know the grade for this one because the distance is so further apart, so I can't. So that is the concept of inverse distance weighting method. And this is a geostatistical analysis that was done using the inverse distance weighting method. We have the Kregen method. Actually, I use the Bayesian Kregen, which is the Bayesian is an interpolation method that accounts for the estimation of the underlying variogram through repeated simulation. So for a sample location, it will sample it, you will tell it what it should do. So you can sample it like 100 times, create a variogram model, maybe 100 times, and then we'll bring out a final one. And then we have the moving window, which calculates the range cell of every portion of the sample points, and then it will bring out a final one. That is the moving window Kregen method. So we will go through some Kregen parameters. So according to Tobler's first law of geography, at a certain distance, range autocorresponds becomes independence, where the variation is cell levels of, which is called the cell. At this point, there is no longer any autocorrelation or relationship between the points of your data points. And then we have the cell. The cell here is the y value at which the model flattens out. The range is the distance at which the model flattens out. And then the value at which the semi-variogram almost intercept the y-axis. That is the nugget. So we have various mathematical model and functions. You have the linear model, which is usually used. You have the spherical model, which uses the modified quadratic equation, where spatial dependence flattens on the cell and the range. Then we have the exponential model. The relationship between two sample points decay gradually at an infinite spatial dependency dissipates. Then we have the Gaussian method, which uses the normal probability curve. This method is useful in phenomena which are similar at short distance because of its progressive rise up in the x, y axis. And then we have the circular model as well. So these are the various mathematical models and functions. So this was created using the Bayesian method, and then we use the polynomial interpolation. We have the global interpolation, which fits a smooth surface defined by a mathematical function to the input sample points. And we have the local phase, which local interpolation method, which fits a specified order of polynomial within overlapping neighborhood and output surface. That is it. I will try to do that in ArcGIS. So this one was done using the polynomial method. Then we have the radial basis function. This uses the 5 basic function to interpolate the surface that pass to the input points directly. So before we go to the resource and reserve, I want us to go to ArcGIS Pro if we can create something out of there. So I have my data. I will look at it. I will open it. We have sample ID, the eastern and the northern, the grid associated with it. So we are coming to use that. So I display my X and Y. And then my sheet comes here. I choose that one. For the X field, I choose eastern. Y field, I choose northern. In place of the Z, I choose the grid. And then I choose my coordinates. Then I run it, waiting for it to show. So my X and Y are here. So now I'm coming to do a geostatistical analysis on these sample points. So I go to two boxes. I go to geostatistical analysis tool. I go to interpolation. I'll first use inverse distance weighting method, and we will see. Input parameter is sheet layer. I'll use grade. Output geostatistical layer, I'll use IDW. Geo. Output raster tool, I'll use IDW Rust. Output cell size, that is the smallest mining unit, the smallest cell in the area. What size should be given to 9.6 is okay. The power is 2. The search neighborhood, we have standard, smooth, circular, and smooth circular, but I'll use standard for just viewing. The weight field, I will still use grade. I should have actually added a specific gravity to use it as the weight field. And with this, I run. It's a complex process, so let's have patience. I don't know why I think my geostatistical analysis has been shown. When I zoom in, it seems to disappear. So that is my geostatistical analysis. I wanted to zoom in for us to see the points in this grid, but when I zoom in, it disappears. So that's the geostatistical analysis using the inverse distance weighting method. And so I want us to use another method to see that one as well. I use the Bayesian, so I will take this one out. And then I will use the Bayesian as well, empirical Bayesian gradient. Actually, this should have been done in SEPAC. When you encounter a place where the thickness is so varying, that is the thickness, maybe you meet a thickness of gravel, which is like 5 meters, and one will be like 0.8. When you use this method to do your reserve analysis, you'll be wrong. So you should use SEPAC to do it. That one will be the best one. But with this new ArcGIS Pro, at least we should have been able to even control the cell and the range and then everything. But they have automated it to an extent that you just input in your data points. It will pick the correct procedure for you, and then you will do it. But if you want to learn that one too, I think there will be a sequel to this conference, and you learn how to do that one too in SEPAC. So I will choose the sheet layer. I'm using the Bayesian. I will choose the Z value as the grade. Output raster. I'll use Baycrate. I'll use that one to same thing. A transformation type, we have non-empirical, empirical. With your data, you have to transform it if it's not log normal or if it's not bell-shaped. So that is the same variogram model type. We have the power linear, thin split. I choose the power. Additional model parameters, maximum number of points in each local model, because it will be modeling some points before it joins up together to form a point. How many number of points should it include? 100 is okay. Local model area overlap factor is 1. That is when it overlaps. It should use 1 to differentiate whether it should join it or it should neglect one of them. And the number of simulated variogram 100. You should model it 100 times and then brings out the final one. And then search neighborhood parameters. We have the standard and then smooth circular. I will choose the standard circular. Maximum neighbors that you should sample for a sample location or sample population. It should be 15. I want it to be 20. Minimum neighbors is 10. It's okay. One sector. You can choose one sector, four sector with 45 degrees offset or each sector. I choose one sector. With this, I will run it. To take quite a long time than expected. So maybe we can continue with our with our presentation. And so now we will consider the resource and then the reserve. We know a resource to be is a concentration or occurrence of materials of intrinsic economic interest in or on the Earth's surface crust in search for quality and quantity that there are reasonable prospects for eventual economic extraction. Mineral resources are subdivided into order of increasing confidence, which are inferred, indicated, and measured or categories. We have mineral reserves or oil reserves, which are the resources known to be economically feasible for extraction. Reserves are either probable or proved. And from inferred to indicated, each one has a confidence level. So inferred, the confidence level is down, the indicated is somehow okay, the measured, the confidence is high for mineral resource, and then probable, the confidence for, when you come to the reserve section, the probable is a higher confidence, but the proven is more higher in confidence. And so with regards to changes in various factors such as mining, processing, metallurgical, economic and marketing or illegal environmental factors, any resource or reserve can move to either ends with changes in these parameters. So with the current spike in gold price, I think one we rejected as waste, which was around 0.15. They called us to let them know the places because they now want to mine, because even if it's 0.15 and they mine and they get an amount of gold, the price will still go up and they will beat up their prices. And I think it's good because now a resource that we thought it was maybe no good because of changes in environmental or mining or metallurgical processes, it has now been termed to be mineable. And so this can change in various directions with changes in these parameters listed below. And so with the resource I calculated using the Bayesian method, I use the same ArcGIS pool to find the area. I know the thickness of the area, so which is 0.33 meters, the grid and everything, I know it. And so I can now calculate the resource in the area. So I'm believing that I'm trying to prove it. So this, what I'm trying to do is I'm calculating a proved reserve. So that is what I'm doing. I can't go. And one thing we have to notice, you have to start calculating your resource or reserve from the first pit that you did. You have to first start calculating it. And so let's hope someone has done that, and I'm coming to do the proving or the probable. And so this is the method we use in ALLUVIA. It's quite simple. After doing your statistical analysis and coming to this, you can create an area of the mineable areas, high zones areas, and then you neglect the places that are bad. And then you do it. Mining site C, we have an area of 318,600 meters squared with a thickness of 0.33, a grade of 0.25. And so you want to know the reserve and the grade that we are having in this area. So we do the calculation. And so with this, we know the square meter to be 613,800, and average thickness be 1.2. We multiply, we get the volume, because the volume, the resource is average thickness of gravel times blocked out area. And so with this, we calculate and find the total volume of the mineable areas. We forget about the grade that fell below our cutoff. We forget about that. And so we know the total volume of the area. And then we want to calculate the average grade of the area. So it's grade times volume plus grade times volume of a different site. Just like that, you calculate grade times volume sites. So grade times volume plus, just like that. And then you divide it by the total volume of the area. And with this, with the geostatistical analysis we did here, we got a volume of 4,797,800 meter cube at an average thickness of 0.58 gram per meter cube. And so when we are reporting, we say the reserve is 4,797,853 meter cube at 0.58 gram per meter. This is a very huge volume. And so I will look at challenges that is encountered in alluvial prospecting. You see, most of the time, the budget that you will send are not readily available. So they will just give you just a small portion of the budget that you requested, and then you use it. And one thing is insufficient negotiation with opinion leaders often makes the work tedious, and the influx of crude knowledge makes expected. Everyone knows how to do it. So when you say this shouldn't be done, this is clearly not correct, everyone thinks, well, we've done it for so long, and so we can do it. And it is hindering the correct procedure that should be followed. And with the activities of galamsey, the redirection of streams and disturbance of virgin forest makes it difficult to follow your points. The point that you say, oh, this point will fall here, you will go there and that place is mined out. So you just have to find a different place or change your position. And the good news I said I have, there are companies around that might need your service. With this knowledge that you have right now, I think you can survive in any of these companies, which are all alluvial mining companies. We have BSD Mining Limited, which is in Eastern region. All these companies are in Eastern region. BSD to mine. In Intel, they are having no geologists now. We have the Kibi Goldfields. They are working. They have geologists. Transeco Minerals and Mining, they have one geologist. Limited, they have no geologist. CG Mining, they have one geologist. Kolat Minerals, they are doing prospecting now. TLG Minerals, they are doing prospecting. Awak Minerals and Mining, they are about to start prospecting. Cascade Minerals and Mining, they are also about to start prospecting. And countless number of small setups. So if you are home and you want to be engaged in this, I think I've given you the enough knowledge to survive in any of these fields. Thank you for our time. I hope you've learned something. Let's go look at our ArcGIS Pro. If it's done. Yeah, it's done. So this is the geostatistical analysis that was done using Bayesian Kregen. Thank you.